All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is our tier list video for the new season. Yesterday, we had the cast get released. We did a live reaction to these characters. It was basically just like a show and tell of these people just showing who they are. Wasn't too much interview, but they were still answering questions and things of that sort. But today, we're doing the tier list. We're only going off of those interviews. I've also done a little bit of research on some of these people just to try to get a little bit of a better feel on who they are, what are they doing, that kind of thing. And so I'll base a little bit off of that. And then, of course, tomorrow, the show kicks off. We'll have a little bit more to go off of. But then Friday is when it gets real. We have the live feed starting. I think it's going to be later on in the night. Hopefully it really is like right at 9. That would be sweet. But we'll see what actually happens there. But that's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'll do like a weekly update on this, on just kind of like how I'm ranking players. Would love to get y'all's reactions too, so let me know what y'all think in the comments. But let's get to it. Well, actually, before we get to this, I have some credibility, some basis to go off of. The last time I did a tier list was for BB25. And for BB25, this is what I came up with. I feel like it's a decent list. It's not that bad. There are some huge misses here, though. We hit on Michael. He was awesome. Pooch was a miss. The great Taylor Hale, she was sweet. Put her at A. I did this tier list after the first night, and I think we had feeds that night. And Taylor was in trouble pretty much right away, but I still liked her at that point, and so I gave her an A. Terrence, he should be a little bit lower. Brittany, in my opinion, should be a little bit lower. I don't remember his name, but I know he was awful. He should have been lower. I like Jasmine. I know some people didn't, so I understand. Y'all might think she's a little high. And then Alyssa, Joseph definitely could have been a bit higher, but I think most of these other people, like Paula or whatever her name was, could be lower. Kyle definitely should have been lower. I still like Amira a little bit, but she wasn't a great player. And then these two are definitely right in the C territory. So we have like a decent baseline of success, but want to do significantly better with this one. And again, like I said, this year we'll actually update them as time goes on. And my baseline for this, kind of like what I'm ranking these guys off of, first is likability. Is this someone I want to root for? Is this someone I'm actually going to care about this season? Secondly, do I think they can go far? And then lastly, we're definitely going to take into consideration like point 2 and point 3. Can they go far? And then do I think they'll get along well with people in the house? Those two things are slightly different. And so we'll touch on some of those aspects. And then we'll definitely pick a winner prediction at the end of it. And then, like I said earlier, let me know what y'all think. I don't like just feeling like I'm talking to a wall sometimes. I want to know what people actually think out there. All right. First off, we have Yash. Yash is, from what I've heard from a lot of people, was a bit of a backfill. He was not originally set, but we've seen a ton of people over the years not be a part of the original cast, be a last minute fill-in, and then they do well. Well, that being said, Yash is not the most likable person. I think he'll probably be fine as long as he doesn't create too many waves. And he doesn't strike me as the type of person to create a ton of waves. He said he's going to be much more of like a casual viewer. But like, he was just a strange fella. He kind of gave me like frat guy vibes. Wouldn't shock me if he really is a part of like a all guys alliance or something. But as of right now, my like of him is relatively low. I think he could make it pretty far, so that's why he's not D. But he's not someone I'll be rooting for. And then I also don't think he has a ton of win equity. Hard to say because we haven't seen these people do a damn thing. But, just the way he communicates strikes me as a bit more of a follower than a leader. And so that's why I landed there with him. Not a ton to add. He wasn't the most interesting person, but I wanted to start with him and kind of go in reverse order of the interviews because typically you spend a little bit more time on the first people. So I want to show these guys and girls who went a little bit later, I want to show them some love. So hopefully we can give them a little bit more attention. Things get a bit more interesting with Taylor Brown. Taylor is an elementary school counselor. She's 27. She lives in Florida. She's someone who says she's a really big fan of Big Brother. She said she's been casual, and then with a breakup, she ended up going deep and really binging Big Brother, which is so real, so relatable. I've had periods of time too where I've been locked in and then I fall off a little bit because of life ventures, but I always come back. And that's the important part. Always coming back to the thing you love. But the thing I didn't love about Taylor is just that she didn't have at first I thought she was kind of like a bit of a clone of like a Taylor Hale or maybe like an Ashley, but she communicates a little bit more directly. I don't think she'll be as like around the bush as they were, at least when it came to like one-on-one conversations. I think both Taylor and Ashley can be very direct when it comes to one-on-one conversations, but I think Taylor's going to be a bit more direct. I don't know how well she'll get along with everyone else. It will also depend on the extras, like the rumors, like we know Angela's coming and some of the other people who will be in the house. But I don't feel like she's going to connect extremely well with them either. I feel like Taylor's in a bit of a tough spot. She says she's great at getting along with a lot of different people, and I think she will be tested with that here. I do worry she might be on the block relatively early. All in all, I did like her during her interview, but I wasn't getting that it factor from her like I wanted to. Between a low A or a B, but right now I think I have to put her in B. I might move her up as we go through some of these other people, but again, it's just I'm not getting a winner vibe from her, which for these preseason tier lists, that's the thing I care the absolute most about. It's like, do I feel like you can win? And sadly for Taylor, I don't think that's going to happen. All right, next up we have Rome, aka Jack is his real name, but only his mom calls him that. He's 28. He's from Michigan, but he's currently in Florida. He is, of course, a new fan, and I don't think a lot of people like him. And if you saw the reaction yesterday, I definitely did not like him. He just comes across as a freaking asshole. And, like, there's always a chance that he's not. And there's always a chance we might see another side of him. And he's the biggest sweetheart ever. Maybe. Hopefully. But I think the line that really got everybody is, he was like, I'm a jock. He was like, people think I'm a jock, but I'm not. I'm not gonna befriend all the guys. I'm actually gonna get in with the betas and the submissives. And that's just a crazy thing to say. Especially if you think like you're not a nerd because you trade cards. Like, no offense to him, but like a lot of people are in that trading card game right now. And they're all different types of people. Realistically, Rome is in that A territory because he definitely has a decent amount of win equity. He said he's very competitive. We don't always see these guys do well in competitions who have some muscles and have a lot of confidence, but typically we see a lot of people expect them to do well in competitions, and so they're people that people want to be in an alliance with. And so at least early on, he should be in a decent spot, unless someone becomes HOH who's like, oh, we need to get this guy out because he could be a threat. And with some returnees and bets, like, that definitely is an actual possibility here. With that being said, I can't imagine or really see myself rooting for this guy unless he's just someone completely different in the house. And also, he said that he talks a lot of smack. He is going to crush his enemies. He wants to be a comp beast. And just kind of looking at this cast, I don't think they're the types who would be great at dealing with someone who, if he is winning, is going to be super in your face about it. And then also, if he's not winning contests, I think he's gonna be a little bitch about it. Like, I think he's gonna whine and whine more, and that's also going to be annoying. Long story short, he's just not someone I can see winning this season, but if he does, I also wouldn't be happy about it. So he's gonna be in D tier for me. When we get to like the season actually starting, even if I don't like someone, I'll still put them in a higher tier because at that point, they've earned it. But at this point, they've done nothing for me, and so I can just put them wherever I want to because I don't like them. And so That's where it goes for you, Jack. Or Rome, since that's what your friends call you. All right. Next up, we have Melody. Melody. She's 24. She's currently in Arizona, but she's from Colorado. She's a game host, a game show host. And so that's a bit of an interesting job to have. But in her interview, she was relatively low energy. She gave some weird answers around how long she's been watching the show, apparently since she's been in the womb. But like I said yesterday, like, it's a little bit weird to give just like weird. It was just a weird answer when she didn't really give like a clear, concise, like, hey, I've been watching since I was 8, or hey, I've been watching since season XYZ. Something I wouldn't do because my memory is not great. But usually with these interviews, we see that, and historically, we've seen a lot of people lie about how big of a fan they are of the show when they really don't know anything. And so when I don't get like that exact answer and clarity, I tend to think they're lying. And unfortunately for Melody, I feel like she might be lying here. But we will see. She said a lot of people tend to think she's dumb, but she's not. She's smart. Again, these are just all things we've heard before. Everyone thinks they'll be good at competitions, things of that sort. It's just hard for me to get a great read on Melody. I think ultimately she's someone that we've seen her archetype go pretty far before in the past. Whether she's a big part of crew, I don't really see her creating an alliance, but whether she's a major part of moving an alliance forward, or if she's being carried by an alliance, that's, I think, like her most likely outcome. Again, the curveball are some of the vets, and so I think typically my brain goes to, okay, who's going to be that popular group of people? Like, is it going to be like a Rome, a Melody, a Lyric, and like some of these other people kind of getting together going up against everyone? Or when there's vets involved, we usually see sometimes some of that older crowd, some of the more just outside of that like cliche popular group have a bit more power in the game. And so if that happens, I think someone like Melody could be in trouble. If Melody really is a fan of the game and she's able to get in close with some of the people coming from Survivor and maybe like the Angelas, really, like, then there would be a chance for her to still do well even with all of those changes. But again, it's kind of hard for me to put Melody in a great position because she doesn't seem the most versatile. But if she does have game knowledge, she's someone I could definitely see moving up to S or A. But for now, kind of like Lauren, she's just someone I want to believe in, but I'm having trouble actually buying in to what she's trying to sell me so far. Lyric is interesting. Lyric is someone who I did look up on. I watched some of her TikToks. I watched a lot of these people's stuff. But Lyrics was interesting because she was also on American Idol. And on American Idol, what's her name? Katy Perry and Lionel Richie and Luke, I think Luke Combs, I couldn't tell you who it really was. We're all basically telling her, like, hey, you're just being a little bit too, like, mystical, fairy tale, super friendly. And we need like a little bit more oomph, a little bit more soul when you're singing. Like, get mad. Like, Katy Perry actually grabbed her and was like swinging her around, trying to get her to just like actually show some emotions. And because like her voice wasn't bad, it just didn't have like that to it. Didn't have a little bit of edge. And so they let her go to Hollywood, telling her like, hey, this is what you need to do. She goes to Hollywood, she does her performance, and it's still very like showgirly. And Katy Perry was like, hey, didn't we slap that out of her? Like, what the hell is this? And I don't know. It put me in a weird spot where I like Lyric. She seems really nice, seems very friendly. But does she and will she give off like a fake vibe? Will people think she's fake? That's the biggest concern I have with her. She is an attorney as well. And so she's a singer, she's an attorney, she's super nice, but are people going to think she's authentic? If it was me, I do think she is actually just a nice person. Her dad was like she says pop star. He was a singer who had a one-hit wonder, which is still super impressive. Like, who gets to do that? But she definitely gets a lot of flack for saying that online. But I think she's someone I would probably feel relatively comfortable working with, because she's not the kind of person who's going to do a ton of backstabbing. She wants to be loyal. She's actively going to look for something good and stable. But not gonna lie, Lauren from last year has kind of given me PTSD with the nice girl vibes and being scared of everything. Ultimately, though, I think Lyric is the kind of person who's just very versatile. I think she can work with a lot of different people. I don't think she'll put herself in a box. She says she's been watching the show for a long time. And so, hard to know if someone who is on American Idol, in this space, posts a lot on TikTok, it's hard to know like how serious that really is. But I just think with her personality type, and I think about someone like Angela and some of the other returnees who are coming, I don't think they're the type who are going to be like, oh, I think she's fake. I think they're more likely to think, oh, how can I use her? And I think Lyric will be happy to just have some people she can work with who want to work with her. So we'll see how it plays out, but for now, she's going to have the highest grade that I've given so far, just because I think she's versatile. And if she does decide to be a bit more strategic, and she even mentions this in the interview, that she wants to be a strong social game player, she wants to be a comp beast. Ideally, the way I'm kind of viewing her ideal win scenario is she does have a little bit of a slower start, and then like once we're a couple weeks in, like 4 or 5 weeks in, she wins an HOH, gets a little bit more credibility, and then she starts making moves. She says she thinks she can be a villain, so that gives me a little bit of hope that she'll be able to make some of the tough decisions at the end of the game where she might still be able to find a way to win. Not the person I'm the most confident about, but it's hard to feel too confident about some of this cast so far. I think you probably feel a little bit better about some of the returnees' odds. All right, next up we have Lala, aka Latrice. Is one of those people, and you all might have caught it yesterday. She talks and I just smile. Like, she's just one of those people. She makes you feel good. She has great energy. She said she's been watching Big Brother since season 2, and she's just one of those people where I believe she's strong socially. I believe people really like talking to her. I do worry about her ability to, be cutthroat and make hard decisions, but I was a little bit more optimistic with her answer to like the "Are you a hero or a villain?" question. And she said, like, by nature she's a hero, but she can be so much more than that, and that she can be a villain, and that she can definitely bring out some of the devilishness, and she has claws, and she can have a bit of an edge. And I was like, okay, Lala, maybe this is copium. Maybe I'm just hoping for something special to be here, because I want someone to really be able to root for. But I think she has potential. She even talks about she believes she'll be able to compete physically. She is one of the older Houseguests. She's 57. And so everyone says they think they can compete and things of that sort. But I think there's enough upside here. She's really like high B or low A for me. But I like her enough, and I think the people on this cast are going to look for someone who's genuine and that they can actually trust. And she's one of those people who won't have a harder exterior. She won't have a hard exterior, and they can actually build that relationship relatively quickly, as long as she knows how to kind of take the conversations from, ha ha, I'm such a nice person, I think you're great, I want to get to know you, personality, all right, let's get to it, let's talk some game. And she's also in boutique sales, and so as a salesperson, I would like to think she knows how to do that a little, but we will see. I like her potential. She's going to get an A for me here. All right, next up we have Mallory. Mallory's interesting because a lot of people, they tried to compare her to Kelly. I think she looks a bit more like Christine from like one of the older BB seasons. But you can't tell from her cast photo, but she's ripped. Like, she's got some muscles on her. She works out. She's also a rocket scientist, so she's smart. And so she's someone that will look like the nerdy, quiet, shy person, but I don't think that's her. I think she's a bit more confident than you would assume from her picture. And even from a social standpoint, I think she'll be stronger than you would typically think. Now, for me, I wasn't getting like, hey, I'm going to be pulling for you, Mallory vibes. Like, she just seemed fine. But I think there's enough potential here where I'm also going to put her in A. I think she could be sneaky. She says she's been watching Big Brother for pretty much as long as she can remember, so she has a good baseline there, should have a good baseline of the strategy. She is more of a casual viewer. She didn't really watch the live streams, but as long as she has a good baseline on how this game works and where to be willing to make some of the hard decisions, then I think that's where I'm a bit more open to it. She is going to push to be a hero, but everyone is until there's real money on the line and they have to make a tough decision. But I think Mallory could be a little sneaky here. All right, let's see who's next. Next up, we have Kimu, or Kamu. Probably Kamu. It's Kamu. He's 32. He lives in Phoenix. He's a MMA fighter. He has the cauliflower ears, all the good stuff. And he's been watching for a while. He started when he was 16. His first season was season 14. He's a big fan of Dan. He saw Dan's funeral, and that's when he really got locked into it. Real as hell. I think everyone can relate to that to a degree. The thing about a guy like Kamu is he's in shape. He's not super tall. He should have really good balance, good stamina, especially just in comparison to people who are in the house. I think when you look at him, he's someone who I thought originally might be a little bit tougher to crack. Like, I thought he might be like your strong, silent type. But ultimately, like, the more he talked, you realize he just seems like a nice guy. Like, he just seems cool. It's like if he's winning competitions, he's building strong enough relationships where people just enjoy his presence. Like, to me, that's the biggest difference. Rome, I think people will get annoyed with pretty quickly, and he'll have like a decent target on his back. He can still make it far, like we've seen his archetype do plenty of times. But I think it's a lot harder for a guy like Kamu to get and be like the first target. I think it's more likely it'll be someone like Rome than Kamu because he's just slightly more likable and easier to build relationships with. That just feels like someone you can work with a bit more than someone who's just all about themselves. And I like him. I think he definitely can win. I don't think we'll pick winners, but I think he definitely has a strong upside potential at this point. All right, next up we have Jason, aka Selena. If you didn't see the last video, I did not watch the Drag Race show, so I'm not familiar with Selena and Jason's antics. I did watch some clips and have some insight on how he works, but I was also watching Taryn earlier today, and he was talking about how Jason mentioned in an interview that he was playing that show like it was Big Brother, but the cast was too dumb to like actually do it, and you could kind of see that from some of the clips. And so because of that, I think Jason has potential. I don't know. I don't think his Drag Race experience will be like a major pro or con. I think it was hard to tell if he plans on talking about it in the house. It seems like maybe not unless someone mentions it. I think there's a high enough chance that they probably casted someone else who's familiar with the show. And I think in that case, if people are familiar with him, I think it will only help him build relationships, but I don't think he'll need that. My biggest concern with Jason is just, is he going to play a little bit too hard? Is he going to try and create too many alliances? Will he be... I know he can build relationships because you can just tell he has that personality, but it's just, will he get out of his own way at the beginning to kind of set a strong foundation before just getting right into the game? And with all of these returnees coming, maybe the dynamic might be, hey, it makes sense to play the game a little bit faster, harder, early. But with Big Brother, it's just such a long game. People get a little exhausted. Granted, not last year, but it's tough. So I like Jason. I'm definitely going to be rooting for Jason. I just ultimately, just the fact that he's been on a show before, he wants to be a big personality. He's almost definitely going to create a little bit of drama. It makes it a little bit harder for me to rank him much higher than a B, just knowing what he's going to bring into the house. If this was his first time on a show. Actually, I'd probably still be a little concerned, but I would be a little bit higher. He would be like an A or S for me, just because we didn't know he was out there creating alliances and things of that sort, which I like. It's just we've seen too many times like really big fans of the show get taken out pretty early, and he is a super fan, so that's what it is. Next up, we have Haley Thogmartin. She's 29. She's out there in Missouri. She's a telemedicine executive. And she was just kind of present. You know, we didn't get a lot from our girl Haley. She seemed nice, very athletic. I did look her up on like Instagram, and I don't think I saw much on her TikTok, but I could just be blanking. And she seemed like she's definitely in shape. Definitely seems like a likable person. Not a ton of personality here, though. It's just kind of my takeaway. And even with her strategy for the game, she wants to be someone who people can talk to, where people can be heard. And if people can get past her outside appearance of not seeming like the most approachable person, but she's there to actually listen to them, and if she can show through her actions or just like her facial expressions that she does care about what they're saying and doesn't just look at them with a straight face like some people who kind of look like her sometimes could do, then I think she could have potential. Because people in this house, which is exactly what she talks about, they've been in sequester, they want to be heard and they want to talk. So if she can sit there and listen and talk to a lot of different people, the potential's there. I'm just more worried that she's probably just going to be a rock and not really talk to very many people besides maybe like one or two people, and she won't be aggressive enough to go out there and have some conversations and be a power player. And she's also not super familiar with the game, and just because of all of those reasons, I have to rank her lower. It's just hard to be overly excited about her right now. All right. Next up, we have Drew. He's 22. In the recording yesterday, I was not a fan of Drew. I was annoyed in like the first 30 seconds when he started talking, and I was like, I don't know if I can handle this guy. But with time, I've seen he was on Beast Games. He's been on some, I'm blanking on the YouTube channel where they're doing dating, like Jubilee. He's been on Jubilee a little bit. I've seen his TikToks where he sings a decent amount. A lot of singers this year, or just people who are musically inclined, or names that have a music connection to them. But Drew, he did grow on me a little bit outside of the interview. I hated him in the interview, but that could be like an age thing for me. Like maybe I'm just getting too old to be hanging around 21, 22-year-olds. But as I did like a little bit more digging on him, and maybe it's just the way I would play it, he struck me as like the perfect person to work with and just get to do your dirty work. Like, get him to like say something ridiculous, get him to like put someone up. Like, he's the kind of person who I feel like is just easily influenceable. And so once I kind of realized, oh, he could have a purpose here instead of just being like the annoying young kid, because he is significantly younger than these people and you can't really hide it. It's just, it stares you right in the face. And I don't really know how he communicates with older people, if he's gonna still be like a bit louder, very in your face, or if he kind of takes a little bit more of a back seat. Will he take too much of a back seat? I don't know, but I think smart players, like some of the Survivor returnees, I could see them kind of realizing the value he could bring, and that could help him make it further in the game than I would expect him to. Realistically, though, I think he's gonna be a in and out type of guy. I think he will try and align with the guys some. I think he'll try and fit in with a lot of people and just kind of let people think, hey, I'm the dumb guy, I'm just here to have fun. But I think eventually he's going to always be like at the bottom of the totem pole. He's never going to be like the guy. He's just always going to be a couple of blocks below that. So yeah, that's true. I don't dislike him as much as I did yesterday, but not a fan still. All right, 3 more to go. Next up, we have Chuck. Chuck is interesting, too, because when I saw his interview yesterday, you could tell he was very uncomfortable, and he was a little awkward in just, like, his movements and things of that sort. To me, by far, it felt like the weirdest one. But then, like, when I looked him up on social media, I saw his TikToks. He posts a lot online. And even then, not always the most vocal, but even like the way he communicated was a little bit different than the way he spoke in his interview. He had a little bit more sass to him, where I was like, you know what, I could see you getting along well with women. But I do still think he's clearly not a fan of the show. Like, even in his interview yesterday, he was like, I want to work with women because the women always stick together and they're loyal. And it was like, my God, that is definitely not the history of this show. But it's still not a terrible strategy to work with people that you get along well with and who you'll be comfortable speaking with. And if that's women for you, then fine. So I don't hate him or his strategy. I feel like we've just seen this archetype a lot, and now he has a cowboy hat on, but I don't think it's different. Unfortunately, I think he'll just be present. I don't think he'll be a major force on the show. He could be, like I said yesterday, another Monty, where even if he is active and doing things and winning competitions and in conversations, I just don't think he'll make a huge mark on me. And so for now, he's going to be a C, but I would love to be wrong. Hopefully he can be a little bit more likable for me on the show. Now, Barrett is a whole nother story. I now realize I'm not the only person who loved Barrett yesterday, but you can just tell, like, it just felt like another version of me was getting on this show. Just someone who loves the show and has put in the time. Like, he's a huge fan. He's done podcasts before for the show. You can just, the way he communicates, I can see him getting along well with people. There's always the big risk with super fans that they will end up, doing too much too fast, burning out. He did say in one of his answers I saw somewhere that one of his favorite players were Izzy, and that was a bit of a not my favorite thing. I don't dislike Izzy. It's just I don't think I would ever list her as one of my favorite players. And on top of that, to me, Izzy's a really good example of someone who was familiar with a lot of returnees, or the returnee that season, and, kind of did that person's bidding. And I don't know what Barrett's philosophy is on working with returnees or not working with returnees, but I worry he might have a similar fate to an Izzy. Someone I'm rooting for, someone I'm pulling for, but he ends up being the low-hanging fruit for a returnee, and they get rid of Barrett because they can't take the shot at the returnee. And so that's my biggest concern with him, but I loved his energy. I loved almost every answer he had. I liked his strategy. I liked his answer to will I be a villain or not. Just absolutely everything he said was good to me, which means he's going to be up there in my S tier, but I am fully expecting to have my heart broken pretty early on with him going home earlier than I want him to, and or just being in trouble. But hopefully, for my sake, I have someone to root for a long time. Alright, Ashley was the first person I saw on this cast, and she was just not what I was expecting when I started watching the cast list. She described herself as outgoing, bubbly. She's an oversharer. She's 24. She's a bartender. When you look on her social media, you can tell she wants to be like an influencer, attractive person. Like, she's definitely someone who has potential in the space. But she said she's watched Big Brother for so many years, and that she's a big fan. But she did stop watching a little bit more as she got older, which, fine, valid. But she's also, I don't know. So there are like two sides of my brain going on right now. Like, hey, because I do think she'll get along enough of a lot of people. They might get annoyed with her eventually, but she seems like she's relatively nice. Seems like she should be pretty easy to start conversations with. If she also has the game brain where people actually like talking strategy with her, then she could go far. Like, she could have a ton of potential. If she's lying to us and doesn't actually know too much about the game, then I worried she might just get used and or just be an early boot. Ultimately, though, I'm leaning on the side of I think she'll be a relatively strong competitor. I think she's someone who definitely could surprise people, and I think that's her strategy, is playing dumb a little bit. She is 24, though, so she's a little bit younger. not as much experience. And I do think the returnees will lower her win equity some unless she's willing to get a little crazy with it. So obviously, y'all saw I had her in the A tier, but I dropped her down to B to be a little bit more realistic. All in all, I kind of like this tier list. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all might extremely disagree, but I think there's some potential here. I think there's definitely a chance where I don't think this is our top two, but it would shock me if one of these two guys find a way to win. And if not, like, I think our A tier is also pretty solid too of some people I'm pulling for. Everything will change tomorrow when we actually have the show start. And so if enough happens, I might like update this. We might post a little quick recap of the Thursday episode, but more likely than not, I'll probably wait till Saturday, once we've had a little bit of feeds, just to kind of do a quick, hey, this is where we're at. These are some of the dynamics we're seeing. Let's talk about like what's actually happening relationship wise, or just predictions on that based off of how people are reacting and responding to what the craziness is that's happening. So it's good times, y'all. Appreciate the support. If you could hit the like button, comment, let me know your thoughts. We'll be back later this week. Peace out.